See, for years I was only a father. Then, some years ago, I became a grandfather. 13 years ago, our first grandchild was born, and then now we have many grandchildren. And I became a father-in-law over the last 14, 15 years. So when I go to the homes of my children, I see them doing things which I may think, hey, that's not the way to bring up children. And the Lord tells me, you had your turn to bring up children. Now let them do it their way. Thank you, Lord. And I keep my mouth shut. And I say, that's not the way we did it in our home. The Lord said, you had time to do it in your home. Now let them do it their way. But there's a tremendous lust in the flesh of Adam to express my opinion. I want to stand before God and say, I have never done it in these 15 years in any of my children's homes. And I will never do it till Jesus comes, because I have learned, don't be a busybody in other people's matters. It's a mark of the devil. It's those who are inspired by the devil, because the devil is called the accuser of the brothers in Revelation 12:10. And there's a spirit of accusation when we are giving an opinion to somebody. So, this is the way I did it. Who said, are you God or something, that your way is the only perfect way? No. So I'm telling you what I just decided that. And so I have a wonderful relationship with all my children and with all my daughters-in-law. Every one of them. They love me because I don't interfere in their life. I pray for them before God. Stop, period, full stop. And if they ask me for advice, of course I give it. And I've discovered the more I keep myself out of their way, the more they come and ask me for advice. Because I don't interfere. And I say, if there's something wrong, I pray for them. Do you believe in prayer? I'm not talking, you may not be a father-in-law, you may be, but this lust to interfere is there in the flesh. And I tell you this, if you've been in this church and you heard me, I've come to this church for 14 years. We have 14 years, we have had conferences here. Many of you have been here many years. But I'm telling you from my experience of 40 years in India, there are people who have heard me for years and have not changed in this area. And they make a nuisance of themselves everywhere, and I'll tell you why. I want to show you this other verse. In the same 1 Peter 4, where it says, don't be a busybody in other people's matters, it says something more of how we can avoid being a busybody in other people's matters. 1 Peter 4, and it says in verse 17, a mark of the people who belong to God's family. I want to be a part of God's family, the household of God it is called here. It is time for judgment to begin with the household of God, and it must begin with us first. So the judgment must begin with me first. I must judge myself first. Lord, in what area should I judge myself? Just the things he has mentioned earlier. Verse 15, am I a murderer? Jesus said, anger is equal to murder. Do I get angry? He said that in Matthew chapter 5. The Pharisees' sin was murder. In the new covenant, equivalent is anger. Like he said, in the Pharisees' old covenant standard was adultery. The new covenant equivalent is dirty sexual thoughts. So, am I a murderer? In other words, in terms of new covenant, do I get angry with people? Let me judge myself. Judgment must begin, verse 17, with me first, before I pass opinions on others. Secondly, it says a thief. Now, I don't think we steal money. I don't think anybody here steals money. Do you steal a person's reputation, testimony by saying something negative about him so that that person has got a bad opinion. You have stolen his reputation by the way you have spoken about that person. You're a thief. As much a thief as the fellow who stole somebody's wallet. You don't see, thief is not only money. I tell preachers, do you steal people's time? I say, if you get up in the pulpit and you've made no preparation for what you want to speak, you haven't waited on the Lord, you've not sought God's will, you've not studied the scriptures, and you get and ramble on from Genesis to Revelation and waste people's time, you're a thief of their time. Ask yourself, how much is the wages, hourly wages, $15 an hour? Okay, if they sat there for if they sat there for 1 hour listening to you rambling, or even half an hour, $7.50 per person sitting there, you've stolen already $400 from those people that day by wasting half an hour of their time. I say, it's like I remember a board in front of a manager's table. It says, if you have nothing to say, don't say it here. I like that. I like to put it in a pulpit. If you've got nothing to say, don't say it here. If you've got something to say, it will help people, then say it. Otherwise, don't say it. Dear brothers, we can think we're not thieves. Evildoer. Don't suffer as a murderer or thief, as an evildoer, something that harms another person. Do you harm somebody's reputation and afterwards discover, oh, I never realized that person did it with a very good motive, or what I heard was not absolutely right. I've made mistakes. I remember some years ago, there was a brother who was in charge of the audio equipment in our church in Bangalore. Young brother, very fine young brother, capable person. He was younger than my youngest son, but a very good person. And something went wrong that day, which I felt was a serious mistake. Not just a minor error, but something more serious than that. And I went up to him and I said, you should have been more careful. You should not have done that. And afterwards I realized he never did it. It was somebody else who did it. Boy, can you imagine how I felt? Somebody had told me that this guy did it, and I did not even check it up. So I'm not being guiltless, I've been guilty. And I went to him immediately. As soon as I heard it, I went to him and I put my arms around him and said, brother, I'm really sorry. Really sorry that I judged you without knowing the truth. Please forgive me. I want to be very more careful next time. So I'll tell you, I have learned by making mistakes.